Guys, it's your boy AD back with a video. Now into this video we're gonna be doing why Rimuru went to One Piece Part 3. So yes, hope you guys enjoy this. And in the last part, someone asked if they saw that the bot was going kinda fast basically. So in this one I slowed it down a little bit, but I'm not too sure if it made too much of a difference. But let me know what you guys like, if I should speed it back up or like bring it a little bit slower again. And yeah, anyways, without further ado, hope you guys enjoy, and yeah, let's get the video started.
Start. Chapter 3: The Creation of the Emperors of the Seas. Before we start this chapter, I would like to go over and answer a question which someone asked me, the person's name being Nice Marco. They asked if there will be a harem? And the answer to this is yes, there will 100% be a harem, and they also put many names of One Piece girls. I guess that they are supposed to be for who they wanted to be in there, but I will say that while not all of them will be in there will at least be one of them. Master So Hot. CL speaking. I am the leader of the Jura Tempest Federation. Speech. I'm the great demon lord slime, super scary, right? Right. Thoughts: water manipulation, water blade. Attacks. The screams of the two teenagers was heard as this was a week after the death of the Pirate King. On a deserted island we see the two boys, Shanks and Buggy the Clown. They were currently running away from their respective trainers, as you see Rimuru not having much of a place to go, and seeing as Rayleigh and the rest had offered him a place, he had decided to stay along with Diablo. However, he started to feel like he was being a bit more of baggage to them more than a help, and so when he heard Rayleigh tell the kids that he could not train them yet due to him being busy setting some things up, Rimuru had offered to help them, which the kids seemed to be happy to settle for, and Rayleigh had no reason why it couldn't happen, and so the training started with them at first doing some basic exercises, stretching and such, to Rimuru asking about and figuring out the stuff that they wanted to learn and what would fit them best, in which he ended up giving Shanks a sword. This sword was a very powerful sword. He had been given it by Roger, who told him to give it to one of the two childs, as it was a supreme grade sword, one of 12 in the world. It was however taken back to Tempest and imported by the three dwarf brothers Cajun, Garm and Maird, who were top-notch crafters, and as such, while it was no god-slaying weapon of destiny, it was still top-notch but nothing to brag about in Tempest. This sword however could do various things, such as one of its basic abilities being able to produce, absorb and control powerful flames to a level. This relied on how much hockey or magicule was put into the weapon, and that was not the only thing that it could do. Meanwhile, Buggy had received a pair of gloves which at first confused him and made Shanks laugh at him. However, Rimuru had shown them that those were not regular glove. Instead, they had near limitless potential, as they could do just about anything that the Wilder wanted, with some limitations to it, with obvious things like changing reality or anything extreme being a obvious no, but it could do simple things such as being used as a storage, and in there was already some guns, from simple pistols to futuristic ones, mini guns, rocket launchers, grenades, bombs. It could also become dagger-like weapons. They could also do simple things like absorb and repel some attacks, and many more things. And so currently we had Diablo currently chasing after Buggy, who had been running and throwing things such as grenades and such at him, which granted he was simply shrugging them off. It was a bit annoying for him to have to push this all aside, and so to make for this he had his demonic claws out, and when he caught Buggy he chopped him up into tiny little pieces, which had already happened 5 times. As this was happening, Shanks was getting slammed around by Rimuru. They had started simple with simply how to swing a sword, but then Shanks got too cocky and asked to spar with him, and so Rimuru accepted, and only using strength was pushing him back. The reason being he wanted Shanks to strengthen his grip on his weapon, and when this was done he changed to the more tactical side of things, where he would use a very straightforward and near robotic pattern until Shanks figured it out and just managed to counter it, and when that happened he would switch a small part of it to sometime even the whole thing, causing Shanks to slowly get better at adapting and such over time. As this and many other types of training happened for 1.5 years, and so currently the two 16-year-old boys were currently sitting next to one another as they waited for their friend and teacher and former crewmate Silver's Rayleigh to come to the island, as he had finally finished and had some free time to come and help them train. Rayleigh! The two boys screamed as they ran towards him, happy to see him and excited for what they will gain from this in the end. Shanks, Buggy, how have you two been? Right, double quotation mark. We've been well. Rimuru sensei and Diablo sensei have taught us a lot of stuff. Right, double quotation mark. Oh yeah, what did he teach you guys? Right double quotation mark. A lot of super cool things we could probably beat even you now. Hahaha, you two seem in high spirits. Shanks, where did you get that sword? Right double quotation mark. Rimuru sensei gave me it. Hey, what about me and my super cool gloves? Right double quotation mark. Oh, what's so special about them, Buggy? Rayleigh asked, intrigued. They are awesome. They can do whatever I want, haha, no one will be able to stop me with them. I'll be the greatest pirate with a lot of treasure. Right double quotation mark. Dahahaha, you'll be Buggy the scary big red nose. Shanks said as he started to run away from a furious Buggy. How dare you, Shanks? After a long while of the two boys running around, they ended up being forced to stop when Diablo had came in and picked them up by the back of their collars, and they were then put near a campfire where they were given fishes to eat, and there was one extra which they ended up fighting over, with Buggy using his devil fruit power to split his hands and get the fish, which Shanks called him a cheater for not having a fruit himself. As this was happening between the two, Rayleigh had decided to talk some to Diablo, realizing that he hadn't done so much, and so he decided to change that, and soon after he found out some interesting things, specifically that he seems to love Rimuru a lot. Rather, it's talking about him, how they are connected, anything that is related with him in some way he seems to be especially happy to do, whereas the other things he does with little to no care, and so he has tried to keep it related to Rimuru, which lead to the current situation of which he was saying how Rimuru could beat Rayleigh, which caused Rayleigh to laugh and say to spar as a joke, thinking he'd back out, which however to his surprise he did not, and said that Rimuru could beat him. He would have thought he was crazy weird anyone else, but he knew Diablo was not just anyone, and so he was thinking of a response. It was too late, as the man had told Rimuru, and so on the end, after a series of events, they were standing on the opposite sides of each other. Kids, watch closely, this is the kind of power you'll need to be a strong pirate. Yes, the two responded, nodding. And so with that, the two mans pulled out their respective blades before Rayleigh did a simple dash forward, trying to stab Rimuru, only for him to be stopped when Rimuru using his feet to step on the blade and push it down, while also jumping up above Rayleigh and slashing for his back. However, using the momentum, Rayleigh had managed to twist himself facing up now and blocking the attack. The two separated once again before Rayleigh smirked as his eyes pulsed and a wave of Conqueror's Haki came off of him, rushing towards Rimuru. However, Rimuru countered with a wave of Demon Lord Haki, which could be used in a similar way to the Conqueror Haki, but with a few key differences, specifically that it was perfectly linked to the skill Merciless, which would instantly kill and take the soul of someone who had given up the will to fight. However, as Rimuru had no intent of killing Rayleigh, he had shut off that skill along with many of his other more world-ending skills, making him around a more leveled ground with the former pirate. And so the waves simply countered each other before they both rushed at each other, once again matching blow for blows. As the battle seemed to be getting more and more on Rimuru's favor, Rayleigh completely changed it again as he started to use the more advanced usage of Haki and such, and so the battle was turned to Rayleigh attacking Rimuru and Rimuru being forced back and having to block and dodge, which was becoming increasingly difficult as Rayleigh started to use Future Sight to be able to intercept him more and more. However, this was stopped once Rayleigh had used Advanced Haki to the point of durability negation, and Rimuru had taken that opportunity to go into a fighting stance which only he could use. As you see, this stance was one of his signature moves, as it was also created by him, and he was the only being in existence apart from CL who could use it. As you see, over his long life he had faced many strong enemies, and throughout that time he had defeated them all. However, it was mostly a combination of overwhelming power and guidance from CL, and so when he had realized this glaring fact, he had decided to change that by gaining more skills and experience, specifically in the sword, and so he had put together this sword stance, which was a combination of all the sword stands and fighting styles in existence, making it neat if not blatantly impossible to counter. And as for why he was the only one who could use it, was due to anyone else, especially humans, would not be able to due to the agility and flexibility needed, and so if a human tried it, their limbs would simply bend in unnatural degrees and break themselves due to the intensity as well, and many more complicated variables such as some parts of the attack had space bending and such. Let's finish this in one attack, Rimuru said as Rayleigh nodded, agreeing to his request. With that being said, a massive wave of extremely dense Advanced Conqueror's Haki shot out as both of Rayleigh's arms become covered in a dense black layer of armament Haki with many lines like energy, each being a different color spreading all over it, and used his observation Haki to the point where instead of his pupil becoming red, his entire eye became a glowing red, making him be able to see the best he could, boosting his abilities to the maximum amount possible. Rimuru, seeing Rayleigh's impressive show of power, decided to match him, and so with a burst of Rimuru's demon lord haki and put his sword back in the sheath, leaving only 2 inches of it out while still holding on to the hilt. And as the two powers were colliding, sending waves all over the island and in the ocean itself. As we see both Buggy and Shanks holding onto a tree as they were being greatly blown back, with Diablo on the other hand simply standing there with the air simply blowing his cloth back. However, he was shaking out of his thoughts when he heard the kid screaming, and remembering that his master Rimuru had told him to keep the kid safe, he stared back at them before waving his hand, activating a barrier around the two, making it as if the waves of power was not hitting them, making the kids be impressed before they focused back on the fight to see Rayleigh start to move at tremendous speed. As to the kids, it appeared as he vanished and reappeared in front of Rimuru before slashing down, and then Rimuru took out his sword before then putting it back, and Rayleigh simply fell down, which greatly confused the kids before they started to run towards him, and when they did they saw something horrifying to them. Rayleigh's entire lower body from the neck down was completely covered to the brim with giant cuts and gashes, which instantly made the kids think he would die. However, in Diablo's eyes he had seen what truly happened, as you see as Rayleigh started to move towards Rimuru he had arrived, and as he made the slash down he saw Rimuru smirk as his eyes opened, seemingly as if he made his mind up, and pulling out his sword and hitting the side of Rayleigh's sword, making it hit the ground right next to Rimuru and causing a giant straight gash all the way to the ocean. And as this happened, Rayleigh's eyes widened when he saw Rimuru blur as he started to move way too fast for him to see, appearing all around him, hitting him hundreds of times. However, none of them truly hit anything deadly, but all his muscles were severed, making it so he could not control his limbs and simply fall. After the battle ended, Rimuru had come over and healed Rayleigh, which greatly surprised him and the kids before Rayleigh complimented Rimuru to his strength, which Rimuru simply laughed and thanked him, saying he was really strong himself. And so after this had happened, the training started again, with Rayleigh now helping to even teach the two powerful enough haki that they could cancel a devil fruit's powers with their haki. Time skip 3 years later. The two boys were now 19.5 years old and had just finished their training. The two had grown well and very strong, with Roger being more of a swordsman and powerful haki user, and Buggy being more of a trickster mixed with his now awakened devil fruit, and lastly his good use of haki, making the two be very powerful in their own rights in their respective fields. As such, the two boys had decided to start to make their way to seas and start their journeys, with Rayleigh deciding to go with Buggy due to Buggy saying that he wanted to form more of an organization and get into contact with some people to make money and that kind of stuff. And so they had made their way to Sabaody, where Buggy separated with Rayleigh, and he had gone around making contacts, getting assets before he would go to look for an island for himself and make himself a crew. Meanwhile, Rimuru and Diablo had went with Shanks to the next island, where he met Ben Backman and told him about what he wants to do, and he had agreed to join. And so Rimuru and Diablo traveled with Shanks for a while, coming and leaving time but coming back. This was done for most of the half year, with them also meeting some big players, but in the end of the 6 months they had done something that caught the attention of the Marines and made them mad and do something drastic. Meanwhile, Marine headquarters. Sengoku was mad. He was furious as he was glaring at 4 specific wanted posters as he slammed his hand on the table, saying, "Damn it, why couldn't you 3 just stay on the low like the other legends? Now you guys are causing so much trouble." Right, double quotation mark. On the desk were the 4 wanted posters of 4 powerful people. With a 4.3 billion bounty, the first wanted poster was that of a woman, Charlotte Linlin, otherwise known as Big Mom, a former warlord for many years after the separation of the Rocks Pirates, and during her time as a warlord she had used her power and influence to kidnap 43 various powerful men and made many kids, with a total of 86, being 46 sons and 39 daughters, which she made a crew with them known as the Big Mom Pirates. And afterwards she had left the warlords and claimed a massive territory in the New World known as Todo Land, which consisted of many islands, and also had claimed some other territories in or outside of the New World. With a bounty of 4.6 billion was that of Kato, King of the Beast, the strongest creature after the death of his former captain Rox. He had been captured a total of 19 times by the Marines and by former rivals. He had then formed his crew after finding a man and started to form a crew known as the Beast Pirates, and went on many rampages all over the New World until he eventually claimed Wanakuni as his territory, while having his all-stars King, Queen and Jack as his main people and connections to the underworld, especially with the new leader of the underworld, Joker. With a 5 billion bounty, Whitebird Edward Newgate, Rogers' former rival, the strongest man alive after Rogers' death, he had been on a bit of a rampage, not killing but claiming territories and gaining new sons and allies in his crew. This led to him claiming islands such as Fishman Island, Sphinx and many more islands, but he had recently started to go on a more relaxed state and simply taking people under his wing. And lastly, with a bounty of 4 billion bounty, red-haired Shanks, the killer of observation hockey. This man was a new upstart. He had been previously on the ship of Gul D. Roger but had all but vanished after his death, just like the other members of the now disassembled crew, but he had resurfaced about 4 years and 6 months later, going on a rampage challenging many strong people such as the warlord and strongest swordsman Mihawk, and he had also formed a crew which was considered to be the strongest crew in the world, not counting the former Rocks crew, and the man had recently done some things that had forced the world government to make his bounty very high. As you see, he and his crew had not only stolen a powerful legendary devil fruit from them, they had also fought and defeated Shiki the Golden Lion and went on to claim his territories for themselves. And so this was the birth of a new group, the Yonko, arguably the strongest of the 3 powers in the world, but they were divided and so it was kept balanced. However, where those 4 to team up, there was no force that would stand a chance against the man. The world itself would crumble under their might, as they were not emperors for nothing. They were the strongest of the strongest with great influence on the world. End of chapter 3. 1. What will the new powerful group, the Yonkas, do? 2. What will Shanks do now that he has such influence as a Yonko? 3. What will Rimuru do? 4. What will happen to the world with those new powerful figures? 5. What will the world do when Monkey D. Luffy, the next king of the pirates, is born, or is he? Find out next time on Dragon Ball Z.